The president of the U.S. National Border Patrol Council says the surge at the USMexico border is the biggest the agency has ever seen. And Vice President Kamala Harris is facing scrutiny for not visiting the border.
Brandon Judd, the president of the National Border Patrol Council, says people are going to hear that surges come, surges go. But he says this influx at the border is unlike anything we've ever seen before. This is not only because of the number of apprehensions, but also the amount of families and unaccompanied children crossing the border.
So when you hear that we're dealing with a surge that hasn't been seen in 15 years, I would argue that this surge is the biggest surge that we've ever seen in the history of the Border Patrol.
In March, Border Patrol apprehended 172,000 illegal immigrants, a 15-year high. This is up by over 70,000 since February. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Border Patrol apprehended up to 1.5 million illegal immigrants per year. But Judd said during a roundtable in Texas on Wednesday that those 1.5 million arrests consisted of only 400 to 500,000 individuals that he said agents kept rearresting over and over again.
Today, if we make 1.2 million arrests, we're actually dealing with about 800 to 900,000 different people.
Judd said the crisis at the border can easily be solved if the Biden administration changes course on its immigration policy. And Vice President Kamala Harris is facing scrutiny for not visiting the border after being put in charge of the situation last month and being personally invited for a border tour by Arizona's Attorney General. Attorney General Mark Brnovich said Thursday that Harris hadn't responded to his invitation and suggested her lack of response says it all. In an interview with Fox Business, Brnovich said Harris needs to look into the eyes of people being smuggled across the border, being exploited by the cartels, and realize this is a humanitarian crisis on so many levels. And Texas Representative Troy Nehls toured a migrant holding facility in Houston Wednesday. The warehouse-like facility is holding 450 girls aged 13 to 17 years old. Nehls said he asked facility workers how many of the girls had been abused or sexually assaulted on their journeys to the U.S.
And what I found out is that there have been girls here that have been sent to a local hospital via an ambulance that have received some form of sexual trauma, and some of those girls actually pregnant. And it can be very, very frustrating as a law enforcement officer for 30 years to hear some of these stories. Because these stories, this could have totally have been avoided.
He's calling on President Biden to secure the border before more children embark on the dangerous track.
Evidence over forced organ harvesting in China is growing. NTD's Lin spoke with Texas Congressman Brian Babin. He's in support of a new bill that for the first time would enable the U.S. government to sanction individuals involved in this crime.
This bipartisan bill, the Stop Forced Organ Harvesting Act, is designed to combat global organ trafficking. If approved, the U.S. government would be able to sanction individuals and government officials responsible for organ harvesting across the world.
It's time that we take a bold stance against the Chinese Communist Party and hold it accountable for these inhumane atrocities.
The Chinese regime has long denied forced organ harvesting of prisoners of conscience, despite evidence of this practice in China.
We're seeing the practice of forced organ harvesting, turning the bodies of political and religious dissidents into assets and profits for the party.
In 2019, an independent people's tribunal based in London concluded that state-sanctioned organ harvesting is happening in China on a significant scale, with Falun Gong practitioners the principal source. International human rights attorney David Mattis told NTD he has no doubt about this conclusion. He says it is the Communist Party's nature to maintain power through intimidation and forced worship of supremacy.
The Communist Party, since it came to power, has been engaged in mass atrocities leading to the killings of millions of innocent civilians.
There have been a number of congressional hearings and resolutions condemning forced organ harvesting, but nothing signed into law. This new bill is seen as an important step in that direction by human rights advocates. Lin, NTD News, Washington, D.C.
Now, you might have seen a new emoji on posts on Twitter and be wondering what it's all about. It features a popular drink in Asia made of black tea and condensed and/or evaporated milk, and represents an alliance of pro-democracy activists. NTD's Evelyn Lee brings us more.
Twitter is launching a new emoji to celebrate the first anniversary of Asia's pro-democracy movement, Milk Tea Alliance. The movement's name comes from a popular drink in the region, milk tea. The online alliance first started last April as a Twitter meme. By now, it has grown into a global movement led by human rights activists in Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Thailand. Twitter says over 11 million tweets over the past year featured the Milk Tea Alliance hashtag. The alliance criticizes the Chinese regime's aggressions in the South China Sea, among other issues. Twitter is banned in China, but not in Hong Kong. Last year, Hong Kong's pro-democracy activist Joshua Wong posted on Twitter saying, "Hong Kong stands with our freedom-loving friends in Thailand against Chinese bullying." Twitter is asking people around the world to join the conversation to show support for the movement.
And in other news, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's not yet been able to speak to his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin to discuss the escalating conflict in eastern Ukraine. He says Moscow has not responded after he lodged a request.
A spokesperson for Ukraine's president says they've been trying to talk to Russia's Vladimir Putin about the build-up of Russian troops on the border. But Putin isn't taking the call. Kiev and Moscow have traded blame over the worsening situation in the eastern Donbas region. President Volodymyr Zelensky's office says Russia has rebuffed attempts by Kiev to start talks over its increased military presence, while a Kremlin spokesman says they have seen no such request for talks in recent days. Video shows dozens of troop carriers and missile launchers lining up along tracks running through southern Russia in a region bordering Ukraine. Moscow denies it is part of the conflict in eastern Ukraine, saying it provides only humanitarian and political support to the separatists. Zelensky's spokeswoman says Russia has amassed 40,000 troops on their eastern border and more than 40,000 troops in Crimea. After talks with Turkey at the weekend, Zelensky is headed for Paris, where he'll meet French President Emmanuel Macron. Ukraine fears the Kremlin is engineering a crisis to rally Russians around a foreign enemy ahead of parliamentary elections in September, in an attempt to shift the narrative away from domestic issues, such as jailed opposition figure Alexei Navalny. The Kremlin says Russia is free to move forces around its own territory as it sees fit for defensive purposes. The standoff has sparked concerns from Ukraine's Western backers. Washington and the NATO alliance have accused Russia of a provocative build-up.
A Facebook spokesperson says the company didn't notify the hundreds of millions of users whose personal data was leaked, and it doesn't have the intention to do so. Business Insider first reported the data leak. It included 530 million users' phone numbers, Facebook IDs and names, locations, emails, and birthdays. Facebook said the leak did not include financial health data or passwords. While the data appeared to be several years old, the leak could cause valuable hacks or prompt other data misuse. And in other news, professional networking site LinkedIn says it has not been hacked, even though data from about 500 million users has been posted for sale online. The company says the post was made on a website popular with hackers. But according to LinkedIn, the information was taken only from users' public profiles, and some data was aggregated from other websites. The company says it did not see any private information in the post. According to a cybersecurity website, the information includes users' names, emails, phone numbers, and professional titles. Authorities in China are blurring out logos of some Western brands on Chinese TV. This is over accusations of forced labor in the cotton industry of China's Xinjiang region. NTD's Patrick Hayden reports.
Chinese media is blurring out Western brand logos on TV in retaliation for Xinjiang cotton comments. The BBC reports it's delayed some broadcasts because post-production editors have so much to censor, from shoes to T-shirts. It seems to be Beijing's latest retaliation against Western brands for expressing concerns about forced labor, in particular in the cotton industry of China's Xinjiang region. Targeted brands are among members of the Better Cotton Initiative, a non-profit group promoting sustainable cotton production. This includes Nike, Adidas and Puma. Beijing denies the claim of forced labor and has even launched a campaign to promote Xinjiang cotton within China. This has seen shares of Chinese clothing brands jump in recent weeks. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
While the world economy suffered during the pandemic, China went on a shopping spree in Europe, buying up various companies across the continent. But Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi has revealed that Italy blocked a Chinese takeover of an Italian semiconductor manufacturer. The current global chips shortage has hurt the auto industry. Italy's Golden Powers rule allows its leaders to protect strategic businesses. One top official now wants Italian steel and automotive sectors to get the same protections. David Cameron says he didn't break any rules when he lobbied on behalf of finance company Greensill Capital. Recent reports revealed that the former Prime Minister personally contacted ministers on behalf of Greensill via text and email. In his first statement on the issue, Cameron says he should have used formal channels. He says he was trying to get the company involved in a COVID loan scheme. The government on Monday announced that it has commissioned an independent review into Cameron's lobbying for the now collapsed company. Research estimates 70,000 learner drivers might have to retake theory tests because their grades expired during lockdown.
As England is entering a second stage of lockdown easing, driving lessons are restarting too, after over 3 months on pause. As a result of the lockdown, testing centres now face a backlog of about 380,000 learners. The Mirror reported learner drivers could have to wait up to 5 months for taking a test. Additionally, practical exams also stopped during lockdown. According to insurance provider Marmalade, for some 70,000 learners, this means their theory test grades expired. A petition to extend their test certificates by 12 months has received almost 80,000 signatures, but the government has ruled out any extension for road safety reasons. Driving tests will restart no earlier than the 22nd of April.
A freight train driver wins this year's Scottish Landscape Photographer of the Year award. 47-year-old Dylan Nardini has worked with DB Cargo as a train driver for the last 28 years. He won the prize with a portfolio of 3 stunning images shot in the Isle of Arran and his local area of South Lanarkshire. Dylan has practiced photography since high school, but has only been focused on outdoor photography since 2014. The Hamilton-based winner said he developed his passion for the landscape while driving freight trains around the country at every hour of the day. That's the news for today, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Stuart Lees.